Everyone underestimates Zenitsu Agatsuma. They see the crying, the complaining, the apparent cowardice. They focus on how he can only use one thunder-breathing technique. They're looking at the surface and missing the most broken character in all of Demon Slayer. Tonight, we're breaking down why Zenitsu isn't just strong. He's operating on a completely different level from every other character in the series. Because when you understand what he's actually doing, what his abilities really represent, you'll realize that Zenitsu could solo the entire Demon Slayer universe, and he doesn't even know it. Let's start with the obvious. Everyone thinks Zenitsu is weak because he can only use first form, Thunderclap and Flash. But that's exactly backwards. Zenitsu isn't limited to one technique. He's perfected one technique to a degree that makes all other techniques irrelevant. Every other Demon Slayer learns multiple forms because they need multiple tools for different situations. Zenitsu learned one form because he turned it into a tool that works in every situation. Think about what Thunderclap and Flash actually does. It's not just moving fast and cutting things. It's moving so fast that time becomes irrelevant. So fast that distance becomes meaningless. So fast that the concepts of before and after lose their meaning. When Zenitsu uses Thunderclap and Flash at full power, he's not just attacking his enemy, he's attacking them at every point in time, simultaneously. That's not a sword technique. That's reality manipulation. But here's what makes Zenitsu truly broken. He can only access his full power when he's unconscious, and everyone treats this like a limitation, like he's somehow weaker because he needs to be asleep to be effective. They're missing the point entirely. Zenitsu's consciousness is what's limiting him. When he's awake, he's held back by human limitations like fear, doubt, and rational thinking. When he's unconscious, those limitations disappear. He stops being human and becomes something else entirely. A force of nature, a living incarnation of lightning itself. Look at what happens during his unconscious state. He doesn't just move faster, he moves with perfect efficiency. Every step is exactly where it needs to be. Every cut is precisely what the situation requires. Every action is flawlessly timed. That's not just skill. That's omniscience. Unconscious Zenitsu knows things he couldn't possibly know. He anticipates attacks he couldn't have seen coming. He responds to threats before they fully materialize. Because when Zenitsu loses consciousness, he stops being Zenitsu Agatsuma, cowardly human. He becomes Zenitsu Agatsuma, avatar of thunder breathing itself. But even that understates what's happening. Let's talk about the deeper implications of his ability. Thunder breathing isn't just about speed and lightning. It's about perfect timing. About being in exactly the right place, at exactly the right moment. About striking when the opportunity exists, and not one moment before or after. Zenitsu has mastered not just the technique, but the concept behind it. He doesn't just move like lightning. He thinks like lightning, sees like lightning, exists like lightning. Lightning doesn't hesitate. It doesn't doubt. It doesn't plan or strategize or worry about consequences. It simply goes from where it is to where it needs to be via the path of least resistance. That's what unconscious Zenitsu has become, the human incarnation of that principle, which means his power isn't limited by physical laws or logical constraints. It's limited only by necessity. If Zenitsu needed to be fast enough to outrun time itself, he could be. If he needed to cut through concepts instead of objects, he could do that too. If he needed to strike at enemies who existed in different dimensions, that would be within his capabilities. Because he's not just using thunder breathing, he's channeling the fundamental force that thunder breathing is based on. Now let's talk about why this makes him stronger than characters who seem more powerful. Tanjiro has incredible determination and can push past his limits. But he's still bound by what limits exist. the Hashira have mastered multiple forms and can adapt to different situations, but they're still operating within the constraints of human ability. Even Muzan, for all his power, is still bound by the rules of being a demon. He has weaknesses, limitations, things he cannot do. Zenitsu, when unconscious, has transcended the very concept of limitation. He doesn't overcome obstacles. He makes obstacles irrelevant. He doesn't defeat enemies. He makes their existence incompatible with reality. But here's the truly terrifying part. He's getting stronger. Every time he falls unconscious, every time he accesses this state, he becomes more integrated with it. The boundary between conscious Zenitsu and unconscious Zenitsu is slowly dissolving. By the end of the series, he was starting to access his full power while awake, starting to become consciously what he had always been unconsciously. If that process continues, if Zenitsu fully awakens to what he actually is, he wouldn't just be the strongest character in Demon Slayer. He'd be the strongest character in any universe. Because he would have become the living embodiment of perfect action, of being exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what needs to be done, at exactly the right moment, every moment, forever. That's not just strength, that's divinity. The reason Zenitsu seems weak is because he's operating on such a high level that most people can't even perceive what he's doing. They see a scared kid who runs away from fights. They're actually looking at a god who's too humble to realize what he is. And the most beautiful part? Even if you explained this to Zenitsu, he wouldn't believe you. He'd insist he's just a coward who got lucky. That humility, that refusal to acknowledge his own power, is exactly what makes him worthy of having it. Zenitsu Agatsuma isn't just the strongest character in Demon Slayer. He's proof that true strength comes not from knowing how powerful you are, but from being too good a person to care about power at all.